What if I told you that for most of human history, washing your clothes and hair with water was considered either a luxury or a last resort, and that the methods people used instead were not primitive workarounds, but genuinely effective techniques that militaries, hospitals, space programs, and the fashion industry still quietly rely on today? There is a way to clean a shirt without water. There is a way to clean your hair without water. Both work. Both have documented histories stretching back thousands of years, and both can be done right now with things that cost almost nothing. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to do both, the history behind them, the science that makes them work, and the one method that kept Victorian aristocrats, World War II soldiers, and hospital patients all looking presentable when water simply wasn't available. Stay to the end, because the hair method in particular has a historical detail that most people find genuinely hard to believe. Let's start with why water isn't always the answer. Water is excellent at washing away water-soluble dirt, dust, mud, sweat residue, most food stains. What it is genuinely terrible at is oil and grease. Water and oil don't mix. That's basic chemistry. When you wash an oily stain with water alone, you mostly just spread it around. This is why soap exists. Soap molecules have one end that bonds to oil and one end that bonds to water, acting as a bridge. Without soap, water is far less effective than most people assume. Here's what you need to remember. The biggest enemies of fabric and hair cleanliness are not actually dirt and water-soluble grime. They are oil and sebum, the natural oils produced by your skin and scalp. And oil, as it turns out, can be removed far more effectively by absorption than by washing. That one insight is the entire foundation of everything that follows. Clothes first. Modern dry cleaning, the kind you pay $15 a shirt for, is not actually dry. The dry means no water. Clothes are tumbled in chemical solvents, typically perchloroethylene, which dissolves oils and grease from fabric without touching the fiber structure the way water does. Water causes natural fibers to swell, stretch, and distort. Solvent doesn't. That's why your wool suit survives dry cleaning but would shrink if you machine washed it. The history of this is genuinely interesting. Dry cleaning is believed to have started in Paris in 1825, when a servant accidentally knocked a kerosene lamp over a soiled tablecloth. When the cloth dried, the spots were gone. The lamp fluid, probably camphene, a turpentine derivative, had dissolved the grease in the stains. The owner, Jean-Baptiste Joly, saw exactly what had happened and opened what is considered the world's first dry cleaning operation. But before Joly, and long before chemical solvents, people were dealing with this same problem with whatever they had on hand. Historical spotting agents, documented in old cleaning manuals and industry records, included turpentine, cream of tartar, ox gall, egg yolks, boiling milk, and fuller's earth. These weren't random. Each of them was targeting oil through either solvent action or absorption. Fuller's earth is the one worth pausing on. It's a naturally occurring clay mineral. The name comes from its historical use by wool fullers, the people who processed raw wool. Fuller's earth absorbs oil so effectively that it was used to degrease raw wool fiber before it could be spun, and to spot clean finished garments. It was essentially the original dry cleaning powder. It is still sold today, still works, and costs almost nothing. The DIY version for spot cleaning clothes without water, cornstarch or baking soda, on an oil or grease stain, left for 15 to 30 minutes, then brushed off. The starch or powder absorbs the oil into itself, and you brush or shake the absorbed oil out of the fabric. It does not work on water-soluble stains, coffee, wine, sweat, but on cooking oil, salad dressing, grease from machinery, it is surprisingly effective. For overall fabric freshening without washing, sunlight and airflow are far more powerful than most people realize. The UV, direct sunlight, kills odor-causing bacteria. A garment hung outside in moving air for a few hours can smell genuinely clean without touching water. This is not a modern discovery. It is exactly what people did before washing machines existed. For odors specifically, baking soda inside a sealed bag with a garment overnight will pull absorbed odors out of the fabric by morning. Same principle as the box of baking soda in your refrigerator. The sodium bicarbonate absorbs volatile odor compounds into itself. Brushing. This one is almost completely lost as a clothing care practice. A quality garment brush removes surface dust, lint, and soil from fabric fibers before it can embed itself deeper into the weave. A few minutes of brushing after, wearing a wool jacket or trousers, along the grain of the fabric, then against it, removes what a casual shake wouldn't touch. The British tailoring tradition maintained that a well-brushed suit worn regularly and properly stored needed washing far less than people today assume. This is not nostalgia, it is mechanics. Loose surface soil that gets brushed away cannot work itself into the fiber structure and become a stain, now hair. And this is where it gets genuinely fascinating in my opinion. Here's the historical detail that stops people cold. For most of recorded history, washing hair with water was either impossible, impractical, or actively discouraged. A French beauty manual, published in 1582 by Jean Libaud, advised that washing water was so scarce it should be saved only for the hands and face. For hair, he recommended Bran, ground grain bran, worked into the hair and combed out. That technique is not meaningfully different from what you buy in a $20 aerosol can at a pharmacy today. During the Elizabethan era, clay powders were the standard hair cleaning method for women who could not access water for washing. The powders absorbed scalp oil, and the excess was combed out. Some powders were even tinted for decorative effect. In the 18th century, the powdered wig, one of the most recognizable symbols of aristocratic Europe, was not just a fashion statement. The starch powder used to dress those wigs was simultaneously absorbing oil, neutralizing odor, and freshening the hair underneath. The first written reference to dry shampoo in America comes from this same era, late 1700s. Starches used on wigs and hair. That's how established this was. During World War II, with water rationing and field conditions making regular washing impossible, the demand for waterless hair cleaning methods accelerated dramatically. The first commercially produced dry shampoo, branded Minipoo, sold by the Stephanie Brooke Company starting in the early 1940s, came with application mittens and a 10-minute process. It was marketed to soldiers, hospital patients, and women managing elaborate hairstyles who couldn't afford to break them down for a wash. The science of why any of this works is simple. Your scalp produces sebum, natural oil, from sebaceous glands at the base of every hair follicle. Sebum is what makes hair look greasy. It is also, importantly, oil-based, not water-based. Water alone doesn't touch it. Absorbent powders, cornstarch, rice starch, clay, fuller's earth, physically bind to sebum molecules and pull them away from the hair shaft when the powder is brushed out. The hair doesn't become wet. The oil is absorbed into the powder. You brush out the powder. The sebum goes with it. The DIY version that actually works costs almost nothing and is backed by thousands of years of use. Cornstarch, used alone or mixed 50-50 with baking soda. The cornstarch absorbs oil. The baking soda neutralizes odor. If your hair is dark, add a small amount of unsweetened cocoa powder to the mix so the white powder doesn't show. Apply a small amount to your roots and scalp. Massage gently, leave for 3 to 5 minutes, then brush thoroughly from scalp to ends. What comes out on the brush is oil-coated powder. Your hair looks and feels cleaner. This is functionally identical to what a $15 can of dry shampoo is doing. The aerosol is just a delivery mechanism for starch and sometimes clay. The actual active ingredient has been sitting in your pantry the whole time. Arrowroot powder is another option. Slightly finer than cornstarch, absorbs just as effectively and leaves less residue. It was historically used across multiple cultures for exactly this purpose. Clay is the oldest version of all this. Evidence of clay being used to clean hair goes back to at least the 15th century in Asia. Rasool clay from Morocco is still sold today as a traditional dry hair cleanser and has a colloidal particle, structure that makes it exceptionally good at binding to sebum and pulling it away from the scalp. The Himba people of Namibia use a mixture of butterfat and ochre clay called otjaize on their skin and hair continuously. It cleanses, protects from sun and dry conditions, and has been a functional hair care system in a water-scarce environment for generations. One method that almost nobody talks about that has solid historical backing. Intensive combing. Medieval hair care, documented in period sources and studied by historians, involved daily combing sessions with fine-toothed combs, often 50 to 100 strokes from scalp to ends. The mechanics are straightforward. The comb lifts oil from the scalp, distributes it along the hair shaft, and carries debris away from the roots. The oil that would have accumulated at the scalp as grease instead coats the full length of the hair shaft as a natural conditioner. Hair that was combed this way daily didn't accumulate the visible scalp oil that unwashed hair does today, because the oil was being continuously redistributed rather than allowed to pool. Medieval paintings show women with hair reaching their hips and ankles. People who had no shampoo, no running water, no modern hair care products of any kind. The combing practice, combined with occasional powder application, kept hair functional and healthy across years and decades. That's not coincidence. That's technique. None of these methods replaces washing with water and soap over the long term. Dry shampoo and powder methods absorb and temporarily remove oil. They do not remove the absorbed powder itself, which can accumulate on the scalp, and eventually cause buildup and irritation if water washing is skipped indefinitely. The historical populations who used these techniques were also washing occasionally, just not daily or even weekly. The methods extended the interval between washes, not eliminated washing permanently. For clothes, dry Methods remove surface soil, absorb fresh oil stains, and neutralize odors. They do not remove embedded stains, set-in grime, or biological contamination. A garment with genuine biological contamination needs water and soap. For a survival situation, an extended camping trip, a water shortage, or simply wanting to understand what actually keeps fabric and hair clean, these methods work, are proven, and cost almost nothing to implement. The dry cleaning industry is worth $60 billion globally. The dry shampoo market is worth over $5 billion and growing. The cornstarch in your pantry costs $2. The Bran that a French physician was recommending in 1582 grew on a field. The clay that women in the Elizabethan era, in 15th century Asia, and in the Namib Desert were all independently rubbing into their hair. That clay is still in the ground. The knowledge was always there, and you just needed someone like me on YouTube to inform you of that cool stuff. That's it for me today. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.